Okay, so now you have your photographs. You've distressed them, you've added color to them, you've added some embellishments to them, but you could even still take it a bit further. I tend to bounce around from medium to medium photography, painting, fiber arts, and so I often like to try to bring all those elements together when I'm creating. And so adding elements of the needle and thread are also fun for integrating into your altered photos. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to come in with some simple stitching just around this part of the image here to enhance that part of the composition. So I'm going to pre-poke my holes so I know exactly where my holes need to be, because once you start sewing, this is just going to make your life a lot easier, whether you're coming in from the front or the back. I often use the tapestry needles because they have a nice wide width and a nice point. So I pre-poked my holes, I've pre-knotted my string, and I'm going to come in from the back, so my knot's in the back. And I'm just going to do a simple running stitch, moving from hole to hole. See if I get it in. There we go. Okay, so now I've filled those stitches, and now I can look and see if there are other parts that I want to add the stitching to. And I'm thinking that I might just keep it nice and simple with just this row here. So I'm going to come in through the back and knot that off. Oops. And run another knot through. Oh, a little fuzzy on there. And trim. Okay. Now if I want to add collage elements to this, I could just take some collage paper or some old book paper, and I'm going to add a little word here. This is bravery, which I feel goes well with this image. And I could either come in with really any type of glue, Mod Podge, decoupage glue. So squeeze that out a little bit, spread it on, and add my word. And if you have other elements that you'd like to add, I've got these great little star sequins. star-shaped sequins. Maybe I will add one to the eagle's chest. Okay. Glue, of course, is going to dry clear. Sequins are always fun to use if you love sparkle the way that I do. So what I'll do here is I'll add some to this image. There's a little decoupage glue, and stick it there, there, and there. Set that to dry. Now, you might end up with a finished piece that you're feeling like, all right, well, there's not enough light. So if you want to add light back in, you could always come in with some acrylic paint. I'm thinking this is probably going to end up in an art journal. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create some white area that I can write over once it's dry and inside my art journal. I could even stamp on top of that. Basically what I'm just doing is I'm just pulling the eye into this area because I just felt like there wasn't enough light in this picture. There was a lot of darker colors. This gives the eye someplace to go, and this gives me the opportunity to add either more embellishing on here. I could stamp out a word, I could write out a word. Wipe that off my finger and set that to dry. You may end up with a picture that you just are not 100% happy with, which is how I feel about this photograph here. So if you have die cuts, that's the perfect tool to use for something like this, because then what you're going to end up with are all these fun shapes with these great textures to them. So I'll do some stars. Where'd you go? Oh, here he is. Some stars. Got this little bird cut. Get some. And then what you have here is you can stick them all in a little baggie or envelope, and you have all of these things ready to go for another project, or to add as elements to other photo collages. Now I do like this Buddha over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a circle die cut. Just cut that part of, preserve that part of the photo. And if you make things to sell, I love this die cut. It's a little tag shape. So if you want to make some funky price tags for your work, you can even punch it out from some of your photos. photos ready. In terms of using die cuts, I really love the rounded edge die cut for especially this process, because you could take your photo, just stick the corner in and round it off. And it kind of gives that classic photo edging. Again. Here we go. So maybe for this one, I will add, let's move these guys out of the way. I'll add a couple of these stars. And use my decoupage glue. And even add a little bit on top. And so this one's yellow, so I'm not going to go for the ones that have a lot of yellow in. I'm going to go for the contrast and add the purples. Like so. If you don't want to use glue, you could always use staples, which I always like to use as a way of fixing bits onto other photos. Let's see, what do I like for this guy? Should I put a star? Alright, maybe I'll add a star. Alright, so I got that in place. So instead of using glue, I'm going to use a stapler. I'm just going to staple that on. And when I do use staples, I tend to make little staple X's for when I'm using it as a decorative element. You can also use little brads. So let's see. This guy's a little star. He's tiny. So I will take, maybe I'll take the Buddha. Push a hole for the brad. Over there. And let's see, which one will I add this one to? Add it to this one. So that's where I want it, so I'm going to put a corresponding hole into that photo. Put the brad through and flatten it out on the back. So there's a couple of different ways that you could add your additional embellishments. This guy's still wet, so I'm going to add a little sequin right on top. Oh, that wet glue. Make the most of it, right? Okay. And you can continue to keep adding and adding and adding. Like I did in the beginning, I showed you how I photographed an altered photo and continued to work on top of it, so they really could keep going and going and going and going into this ever-evolving collage cycle. But it's just fun to work, I think, when you're doing collage work with your personal imagery, because if these are all your photographs, you are connected with all of these experiences from when and where the photograph was taken. So I hope you have fun playing with all these different techniques. I'm going to give you a little tour of some of my photo journals for you to take a peep at, and I'll run you through all the techniques. You'll recognize it now that you know how it's all done. And I hope you play. Maybe stage a party, invite all your friends over with their photographs, and share your technique of all your new creations.